Active listening will transform the way that people look at you, from being just on the face to being someone that is highly respected and valued in their system. In our society today, we're facing a bit of a compassion crisis in healthcare, in the food industry and services. The companies that do the best are the ones that provide the best service to their customers, because it is so hard to come across something that American companies do particularly well. If you do not develop this ability to actively listen, you will stay just the way that most people are in society, ineffectual, not living up to their potential. We wear a lot of hats in our daily life. We have to be therapists sometimes. We have to be the pillar. We have to be people that others look out to as trailblazers. We have to be strong. We have to be weak. And active listening is something that will help you do all of these things accurately, depending on the circumstance. So what is active listening? Active listening, in a nutshell, comes down to being very present when you're having conversations with individuals or groups. So when you're in a situation where you are expected to actively listen, say a colleague comes up to you, maybe your significant other is having a hard time, it's important to first of all have a sense of curiosity for what this person is going through. Perhaps you have your own set of difficulties that day or that moment. Try to become a wall, a canvas for them. And you do this by giving them enough time to express their thoughts, making sure that your body language indicates that you're actively aware of what they're trying to do, meaning look directly at them with your whole body, and make sure that your face is directed to them for the most part, and make eye contact as much as you can. You should also have a sense of positivity in your approach. And the way to develop this thing, there is a concept called motivational interviewing. And a big part of motivational interviewing is actually the listening component. When someone says something to you, it is your job to not only listen to them, to repeat back potentially what they've said in a different way, move the conversation forward. You might be thinking to yourself, Rob, I don't have the time necessarily to go and sit around and listen to every single person's qualms, and maybe they just want to talk to me and I just don't have the time, period. I encourage you to try to make as much time as you can for the people around you, because you never know how much you're really helping someone. In the book Compassionomics, a systematic review by a particularly esteemed scientist, he says that 20 seconds of listening to someone in the healthcare industry fundamentally changes people's perspective of their healthcare providers and the system as a whole. Compassion tends to make things more efficient as well, whereas a lot of CEOs and higher up leaders don't necessarily know the power of it. The efficiency of a system where people feel cared for is unmatched. When you have happy workers, when you have happy people around, they're necessarily going to want to work at their maximum capacity, just in order to help the system they believe in and have love for. It's very easy to get bogged down in the things that people are telling you. But you have to realize that a lot of the times, on top of believing that you are someone that they can rely on, someone that they can confide in, people are looking for some small advice. And positivity, in my opinion, tends to breed the best advice. Either about people, about their circumstance, about having a larger view of what they're going through, giving them a sense of, hey, it's gonna be okay, puts people at ease, and generally is the case anyway. Nothing in life is catastrophic for the most part besides death itself, right? So have that perspective on you when you're dealing with people. A lot of people tend to also make the mistake of laughing too much. Sometimes it is not ideal to just have a charming laugh and move things along. I understand this is a tendency for people that work in very stressful situations, and a tendency for people that want to break awkward silences with a laugh. Oftentimes, however, if we do this too much, we come off as people that are ingenuine, and potentially unassociated or unaffected by the conversations that we're having. To be a passive bystander rather than an active listener is something you have to watch. Though laughter is very good, I would suggest some humor. Humor brings a lot of people together. Laughing in the face of difficulty could separate one from another. There are situations, however, when you have to kind of turn that off. I understand the opposite end of the spectrum, when you are too busy or when you become the dumpster for people's emotions. I heard for a long time, and something that I believe, there are people that tend to be sinks of energy, and there are people that tend to be wells of energy. For the most part, it's good to surround yourself with people that are wells of energy, because they will give you energy, they will pick you up, and they'll keep you moving. However, sinks of energy are very important too. They are people that will teach you to dwell, potentially, in something that makes you uncomfortable. And the importance of being that person, that pillar in society, is tremendous. People need people to help them change. They are the most effective means of causing people to change. So if there is someone that comes up to you with some negative energy consistently, you have the power to put some positivity into that well. However, when someone is taking a lot of your time, and you have to move on, you have to be a bit assertive. And this goes to my more kind, compassionate people already. You have to know that you are an individual in that conversation. That a lot of the times it's really good to be a wall, a canvas. You have to. But all the time, not necessarily the case. In conversations where someone is talking to you and actively you are listening, however, whenever you try to make a point, they interject over you. You have to realize that that person does not have the respect for you that you deserve. And in those situations, you have to finish your sentences. You have to continue to talk potentially over these people to give yourself respect in that conversation. Something a lot of people miss out on when they're first starting to develop their leadership and their assertiveness in conversations, their productivity in a system. Lastly, I'll say the importance of listening to people in your own head will always come down to whether or not you believe listening to people is actually good for you to help build you as a person and your character. To which I say, you have to stay curious, my friend. You have to stay curious into people. If you do not have a sense of palpable curiosity in the way that you approach your active listening, you can only get so much out of a conversation. You have to believe that each person has something unique and something beautiful to offer you to help build your mentality and your data, your more realistic view of the world. You can learn from a hypocrite. This is one of the most powerful things that I learned off of a quote off a wall in my teacher's classroom when I was young. You can't make all the mistakes yourself. Learn from other people's mistakes. Active listening will allow you to do that. Sure, at some point in the conversation you might have something to say towards it, a piece of advice that you believe is rational and relevant. But for the most part, listening to what people are going through, their emotional state, how they've reacted to something, is going to give you context from when you face that situation in your life. Immediately beneficial to you. If you have a sibling that's always doing crazy stuff, and they're telling you about something that they've been doing that's really been affecting them and hurting them, don't get upset at them. Embrace them as who they are, and realize that whatever they're going through, whatever mistakes you think they're making, they're also giving you passively the solution to not make those mistakes yourself. Huge, huge. This is why I also encourage people to make friends with people that are older than them, sometimes significantly older. They move slower, but they have more mature, more fleshed out ideas most of the time. I remember there was an acquaintance of mine who loves music, and I sent him an album that I created, and he absolutely hated it. And he was one of the first people to be very actively, vehemently opposed to my music. And at first, I was a bit hurt. But then he sent me all these recommendations for these esteemed musicians and the way that they play and the things that they're doing. And I ended up watching these videos, and it has allowed me to learn more about what it means to be a musician and about perhaps some of the things that he, as an individual, was looking for out of my music. Creatives, artists in general, should be thinking a lot about how their audience views the things that they do and augment it accordingly. Otherwise, they're only going to be so successful, correct? I make these videos once a day. My goal is to give myself a journal about my emotional intelligence journey, and hopefully something for you guys to learn through as well. In the description below, I have a bunch of links for the books that I've talked about, and also my social medias. Please comment, subscribe, and like. It helps a lot in terms of spreading the videos. If you have any people in your life or any communities that might benefit from this type of thing, please share that. You have a lot of power as an individual to spread messages of peace and hope. And in our modern day and age, people like you are necessary to help humans establish a greater sense of community. So continue listening to your friends, your enemies, whoever you can. Practice it every day. It will make you a more attractive person. Take care.